Let's further discuss this now with Judy Gitau. She is the Africa Regional Coordinator for a non-governmental organization called Equality Now. It focuses on driving legal and systemic change needed to end sexual violence and discrimination against women and girls. Thank you so much for being with us on the program today. We've heard time after time of reports detailing women that have gone as far as to committing suicide in order to not be subject to sexual violence in Sudan. Just give us some information, some more insight on the impact that this is having on women, on their families, and wider communities in the country.
Thank you so much for having me. Indeed, the situation is dire. The numbers are quite high. The prevalence is also high, as we've already heard. And the types of violations that we are seeing or are being documented range from rape, gang rape, sexual slavery. And whereas the entire community as a whole is suffering from, starvation and having to be forcibly moved, women and children are suffering at even higher level. Because they too have the risk of sexual violence being meted against them. The impact of such sexual violence, which is aimed at either humiliating them, punishing them, and in some instances resulting even in their death, results in them being ostracized from their own communities, some having mental illness and destabilization. It's documented that very few hospitals are still operational or working, so that they don't even receive care for the immediate violation. And so the situation is quite dire.
There's a dark history of sexual violence being used as a weapon of war there, and it continues. There are international organizations and courts bringing attention to this situation, but are they doing enough to address these abuses? What more needs to be done?
They aren't doing enough, certainly not. In fact, the response has been abysmal, to say the least. The conflict or the history of sexual violence in the Sudan has been in existence since the time of Omar al-Bashir. At the time with the Janjaweed in the Darfur region, a high number of women and girls were violated, and there's been no accountability from then since now. The impunity with regards to sexual violence against women, against children in Sudan is what is the resultant effect of what it is we're seeing now. We do know that Amnesty International has interviewed about 30 women, and there has been absolutely no accountability. There is need for enforcement of law. I say this because the violations against the women, the sexual violence, amount to crime against humanity, and in fact, amount to war crimes. As such, they can be enforced in the international space. They can be enforced in international platforms. The UN can pass a resolution to bring Sudan, despite the state of conflict, to address this as an issue, because indeed it's a crisis. There is need for a response, and the impunity that has been underlying this specific issue over time has resulted in the crisis that we have today.
If we don't see the accountability, as you mentioned, and a body enforcing law on the ground to stop sexual violence from being conducted, what will this lead to if this continues, if this problem continues at this rate? What would the ramifications be?
I'm afraid we cannot look into that dark future. I'm afraid a lack of legal response will mean an end to women. We do know that in other conflicts, in the Rwanda conflict, the genocide of Rwanda, where women were raped and the rape was determined to be genocide, was the highest recognition of this violation as a violation. And I think it's time that that recognition is done in this space. I think we cannot look into a future where there cannot be an accountability for this, because it will signify a message to not just the women of Sudan, but the women of the world, that they are insignificant. And the gains that women have made to be recognized as human beings equal to their male counterparts will be completely erased with just that one action or inaction, if you like.
Okay, Judy Gitau, thank you so much for joining us here on TRT World and sharing that insight with us. I appreciate it.